I'm not a big fan of Jeremy Corbyn, but saying that it is Jeremy Corbyn who is the problem here, well, everybody knows that the problem is a division inside the Conservative Party. That is the problem. Everybody knows that. And moreover, we are all following every day the votings inside the House of Commons. I can tell you that the sessions of the House of Commons have become more popular even than the matches in the Premier League in Europe. The only difference is, well, I can tell you it's always a draw there in the House of Commons, while there are more goals scored, fortunately, I should say, mainly by also Belgian players, into the Premier League. So let's be very sincere with each other. Let's hope that these cross-party negotiations that start today give a solution in the coming days. And we, from all sides, we have said it, we are open to change the political declaration to make that possible. Customs union, free trade arrangement, a common market 2.0, maybe something else, we are open to do so. But it has been done before the 12th of April. And before the 12th of April, Mrs. Foster, there has to be a meaningful vote in the House of Commons so that we have a basis to do so. And secondly, we need also a roadmap so that we are sure that everything is implemented in the secondary legislation in Britain until and before the 22nd of May. And last, and that's my last remark that I want to make, I know that a number of colleagues are thinking, maybe a long extension. Don't make you any illusion. The fact that we should create a situation where Britain is with one foot inside the Union and with one foot outside the Union is a tragedy, is bad for the European Union. Can you imagine a little bit that the new Prime Minister of Great Britain, Mr. Johnson or Mr. Gove, both the architects of the Brexit disaster would have the keys in their hands on the future of the European Union. I cannot think about it, that will happen. It will be a disaster for the European Union, and it's not the way we have to go forward. Finally, I think, and that is what my colleague Mr. Gualtieri said, the only advantage of Brexit, Mr. Gualtieri, is in fact the following. That is that people can see for themselves now what it means when populists and nationalists take power in a country and make an image of a country and a future that is not existing in that country. It's a good lesson for the European elections, I think.
Mr Juncker, despite your determination to give a punishment beating to the United Kingdom, the current impasse is not exclusively your fault. It has been your misfortune almost as much as ours to be dealing with the worst Prime Minister in British history, someone who stands for nothing and can deliver nothing. When someone is so passive about having sand kicked in their face, it takes a restrained kind of bully to walk off the beach. And we know from its dealings with Greece and others that the Commission is not a restrained kind of bully. But you would be making a terrible mistake to assume that Mrs May is representative of the British people. You have men like Tony Blair whispering in your ear the dream of the British suddenly embracing your project of integration. Do not believe it. We're a different kind of European nation. We have a different history, a different geography, and different modern networks too. You should ask why Blair, in his pomp, could not risk a referendum on Euro membership. You should ask why Brown could not risk a referendum on the Lisbon Treaty. And you should ask why Cameron, when he was forced to hold a referendum on membership, lost it to the greatest number of British people ever to vote for anything. And finally, you should ask yourselves why, after being threatened with no food, no water, no medicines and no jobs, the latest polls show that more British people wish to leave the EU with no deal next Friday than to remain. And once you've asked these questions, then you should look ahead. You should imagine how Mrs May's successor would seek to rebuild shattered Tory support before the next general election, if we have not left. He or she will be leading a party whose potential support is overwhelmingly formed of Leave voters. And do not expect consistency from the Conservatives, by the way. The tooting popular Marxist front will not last. Instead, the answer is obvious. Guy Verhofstadt is right. The successor will seek to rebuild support by making your lives a misery through vetoes and political sabotage, by rejecting every proposed development of your project. So reject another extension, resolve that Brexit will happen on WTO terms next Friday, and then negotiate constructively to tie up the loose ends after that. Do this, and we can still be your best customer. But lock us in, and we will be your worst nightmare.
Mr. Batten for 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam President. Every time we think that things can't get worse, they do. Every time Mrs May gets up to speak, we think that she may say something to resolve the situation. Instead, she just sinks lower into tragedy and farce. Now she's handing the Brexit hot potato to Jeremy Corbyn, and apparently the European Union will decide whether we take part in the European elections or not. Now, has the whole Brexit process fiasco been an elaborate conspiracy between Mrs May and the EU, or is it just due to her monumental incompetence? Either way, we have to hand it to you, Mr Juncker, Mr Barnier. You have done what Philip of Spain, what Napoleon, what Kaiser Wilhelm and Hitler couldn't do. You have brought Britain to its knees without firing a single shot. But you could not have done any of these things without the connivance of the traitors, quislings and collaborators in the British Parliament and British establishment. As Seneca said, a nation cannot survive treason from within, and treason it is. Mrs May and the Tories planned to betray Brexit from the start. They have betrayed it by means of delaying and impeding, with the intention of finally overturning it altogether and setting aside the decision of the referendum. Many of the 17.4 million people in the UK who voted Leave now believe that their vote is pointless. But Britain is still nominally a democracy, and the vote is the only weapon that ordinary people have. Those 17.4 million people can still vote for Brexit, and they can make a start on the 2nd of May, when the UK Independence Party is fielding candidates up and down the country in the English and Welsh local elections. Now, Mr Juncker, if I heard you correctly, you said that there will be no extension to Article 50 beyond the 12th of April. And if there is no agreement on the withdrawal deal, then we leave by default and go on to WTO terms. I think that's one of the few things you've said I actually agree with. Good, let's bring it on. But if Britain is forced to take part in the European elections on the 23rd of May, then UKIP will field a full complement of candidates in England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. There will be no deals or alliances with opportunist parties and their daily allowance-grabbing candidates. UKIP will stand on the policy of unilateral and unconditional withdrawal, no compromises and no surrender. And UKIP will carry forward that policy into the next general election. UKIP will accept no agreement on any other terms. We stand for a complete and total exit from the European Union. The struggle to set Britain free from the European Union continues. UKIP leads that struggle. Vote UKIP, vote Brexit.
Mr Smith, Alan Smith, you were raising... Do you want to make a point? I won't allow questions at all in this session. No blue cards. You have...
Rule 11, paragraph 3 of our Rules of Procedure to make a point of order about what was a flatly disgraceful speech from Mr Batten right there. He does not speak for the people of the United Kingdom. He barely speaks for his own party, such as it still exists. And to use that sort of rhetoric in this House of Democracy is utterly shameful. Can I suggest that you and the Presidency think whether or not this House should continue to give a platform to these wreckers for their poison? Thank you.
excuse me, Mr. Batten, I have the microphone and I will speak, and then I may allow you to speak. Can I say that I will definitely bring your issue to the President? I was also concerned about the use of another term, punishment beating. I find that a difficult term in the context of my own country. Sir, do you have a point?
This gentleman represents a party which claims it wants independence, and yet it's happy to be subservient to the European Union. By all means, ban me and watch my vote go up in the United Kingdom.
We will give the floor now to Mr. Hookham for 1 minute. Thank you.
Madam President, if Messrs Juncker, Tusk and Barnier think they are dealing with a British Prime Minister, then I have news for them. Theresa May might still have the title, but she's nothing more than a prime ministerial ghost squatting in number 10, awaiting a political coup de grace from a party that despises her, while many of you just want the whole Brexit debacle to be over, to get on with your building of a European superstate in peace. Mrs May is clinging to your enterprise like a dog on a postman's leg. Not only is Mrs May ignoring her party and the electorate in trying to force a vassal state deal on Britain, she's also negotiated her way into enacting the Remain-minded policies of the Labour opposition. Now, bearing in mind the attitude of the British people to the EU project to date, and imagine what it would be like after a complete Brexit betrayal. So I call on you all to do Britain and the EU project a favour. Give May the coup de grace the Conservatives are too weak to deliver, and let the UK leave on the 12th of April.